The issue right now is grain markets suck. The prices suck. They won't move to the upside. And we've seen in the last 10 days, just in the beginning of the year, soybeans sell off $1. Hi, greetings from Missile Command here in central Iowa. I'm Rupert Williams from Go Farm Yourself. The issue right now is grain markets suck. The prices suck. They won't move to the upside. And we've seen in the last 10 days, just in the beginning of the year, soybeans sell off $1. That hurts. Corn, same thing. Everything's down about 10% already on the year. Now, I know the old saying is we've only made the low in January, or the low of the year, or the high of the year in January, 3 of the last 50 years. But this isn't the last 50 years. These are markets we've never seen before. We measure momentum at Go Farm Yourself, and we have seen readings that are so negative. We've never seen them before. And so our trading robot reads that and wants to buy it, but the markets keep going lower. Funds, you've probably heard of them, right? And they are pushing the market lower. Now, are they the bad guy? Well, they're the same people that pushed the market to 750 before planners rolled in 2022. So that's something to think about. To the upside, they're great, and to the downside, they're bad. Now, it's the same way the market used to work. It's just there's no people in the middle. So it's all about money flow. And right now, the money flow is betting that the market is going lower. And it's an easy thing after this USDA report we had on the 12th that said, we're going to have a 2.1 billion carryout, and we did 175 bushel an acre nationally corn, and Iowa in all 99 counties was the fifth driest on record, going back 130 years. So this is what scares me about that. If you're talking about we had the driest year on record and we grew 175 bushel corn, what that taught me is the seed traits and the American farmer is so good that they can grow in any conditions. The seed's gotten better. The farming techniques have gotten better. You've gotten better. And now you're just too good at it. Well, that's not a bad thing if we have demand, but that's what everyone's talking about right now. China's in trouble. And China buys a lot of grain from us. And they always say when China sneezes, the world catches a cold in commodities. So that's the reality of the situation right now. I certainly hope we get a weather rally out of South America on the second crop corn, which all hits the export market. But if we don't, we're sitting on piles of corn around the Midwest. And how do we get rid of that? Well, we have to increase demand and we have to stop growing corn. That being said, that doesn't look likely. And we're already talking about this year, lower acres. Remember, we had 94 million last year. Right? People in Southwest Kansas, Texas got moisture that they normally don't have, and they were able to grow a good crop. We hear that from our farmers there. That being said, when everybody said better than expected during harvest, I kept asking what that meant. And it turns out, well, it's about trend line. Okay, well, if trend line yield this year is 183 or 184 bushel per acre, and we get a cool, wet summer, we're going to grow a big crop. I was doing the math just at that number. That's a 16.5 billion bushel supply, and this year was 15 something. So you're going to add another 1.5 billion bushels in production, and where are we going to get the demand to take that out? So if we're sitting at a 2 billion carryout right now and demand doesn't improve, then you got an increased supply. And we know when there's a higher supply, the price tends to go lower to find more demand. And I don't know what that price is. I can tell you what has been historically. And in the years that I've traded corn, like 2013, 2014, where we got a really good summer, we were at $3.30 corn. We would go up, maybe stay above $4 for a while, and then go down to $3.30. Now everyone's like, well, there's inflation and interest rates and this and that, and so corn, this is the $4.50 is the new $3.50. I don't know if that's true, and that's my concern. What if it's not true, right? What if the reality is that the market is finally realizing this, and they're going to push this back to historic levels? Well, I know your expenses are higher. I know your inputs are higher, and that's why we need to manage risk. That's the risk. If the price goes up to the moon, that's great. You're going to be farming next year, the year after that. Your land values are going to go up, and you're going to be able to make a better margin per acre like you had the last couple years. But what if it doesn't? And that's the thing we forget when we have these seasons of excitement, right? Go back to 2012. Remember 2007. We went up to $8 that year. And by the end of the year, now granted it was a global meltdown, but any of that happens again, we went sub $3 that year on the board. Now, I don't even know what your local basis was. So if that's the case, we need to be very serious about risk management this year and your marketing plan. Now, I'm not telling you to go sell all your corn today. I'm telling you that you need to use all the tools available. And there's a lot of different tools out there. You've got the Chicago Board of Trade, and everybody has a horror story about that, right? And I remember talking to some guys at a conference in Chicago. A bunch of farmers come in, and there's a whole thing for them. They're good growers, and I was talking with them, and one guy's like, You're one of those boys in Chicago? And I was like, whoa. I'm just keeping the market moving. But that being said, he said, I've never made money trading options. And I said, well, that's interesting. That's all I've done my whole life without the product and made money. So perhaps you're doing it wrong. And I don't say that to be a jerk. I say that to be honest. This whole industry was set up by keeping you in the dark. Times have changed, and I'm here to tell you that. I'm here to level the playing field. That is what Go Farm Yourself is about. I am trying to take the tools that we had in Chicago and teach the farmer how to use them. That's why we do this. That's why we have this company. That's what we're about. We want the farmer to make more money. And if you win, we win. And so right now, I'm just here to educate. There's all kinds of tools. There's options. I'm sure you've heard of those, but they're scary, right? Because there's multiple components in them. And then you've heard of futures or HTAs or accumulator double ups. That's a scary one. But sometimes in certain markets, there is a different plan, and knowing when to deviate from that plan and what you need to do in different environments is going to separate you from everyone else. And that's what we're seeing growers on our platform do. That's what we're seeing with growers that are flourishing in this environment. They are doing things different, and that's why they are getting bigger. So in order for you to compete with them, you're going to have to do things different too. Just like when AutoSteer came out. I don't need that. I can drive my own tractor. I can drive straight lines, no problem. Except the guy with AutoSteer could do it more efficiently and faster. So he might have got his crop in right before it rained because he can farm at 5-6 miles an hour. Now you got these high-speed planters. You got all these other things. So competition is coming in all parts of the farm, right? And so that's where having bins and learning how to make those pay for you to capture carry, et cetera, rather than just store and ignore. Now, store and ignore is a strategy, and it's worked really well the last couple of years, phenomenally well. In fact, it has outperformed any other marketing plan there was, except now we're in a downtrend. So storing it, the price is going to be less tomorrow. And one of the reasons there's been so much pressure on this market post-harvest is the market was expecting, well, I don't think I did trend line. I might be down 10, 20%. And then it turns out guys did a lot better than expected. And because of that, now you've got this extra supply on the market. I had one farmer from Illinois call me and he goes, hey, I grew an extra 100,000 bushels. What should I do with it? And I said, well, you're not the only one like that. So why don't, and that was about 20% above what he expected. And so he hadn't marketed it. I said, well, price is probably going lower, so I would just sell it today. And if you need to do something else, I would buy options or whatever. This is specifically what I would do. Now, listening to anything I say or do, you're likely to lose all your money and then some. That's the disclaimer, right? Contact a professional. But I'm here to educate you. There are things you can do. I think the thing that's really difficult, back to my own experience of feeding cattle. I fed cattle, physical cattle, in 2014 and 15, which the market was going straight up, and it was like nothing you could do. I had a pen that had 10% death loss and made money. I didn't really know a lot about it. I had some friends that were trying to help me with it, and it was exciting. I went around and saw the cattle. I had a sense of pride that I'm helping feed America. And then what happened? 2015 happened. In October, the cattle apocalypse, and I'm sitting there with all these cattle on feed, and the feed yard manager calls me and he goes, hey, Rupert, your cattle ready to go? It's been 140 days. We don't have a bid. I said, what do you mean you don't have a bid? He said, well, we got a bid, but it's not very good. And I said, okay, well, what is it? He said 118, 3 weeks time. Now, at the time, the board was 136. So if those two things have to converge because it's a physically deliverable product, just like corn, I said, well, I'm short on the board against these cattle I have on feed, And you're telling me these are worth 18 back? These are not Holsteins. They are front end number ones. So that being said, I sat there and said, well, I'm not going to sell them with 3 weeks time. I'll just go eat a steak or two and make this commercially disappear myself. And I said to the guy, I said, when do you think they'll be back? He said, hopefully next week. And I said to him, I said, hope is not a trading strategy where I come from. But I got emotional about it, and I had a big loser on my hands. And I was like, well, we'll just feed our way out of it. And he said, well, the cattle aren't going to perform very well. And I said, well, I don't really care. How bad could it be? And I didn't realize a 1,500, 1,600 pound animal, if you give them 40 pounds of corn every day, they're not growing at all. In fact, one of them died of bloat. So we put $700 worth of feed in it, paid $2,000, $1,600 for the animal, and got nothing from it. Well, that was a big loser. And then 3 weeks goes by, and he goes, hey, we got a bid finally. I think we should sell them. And at this point, I was so stressed out and frustrated. I was like, okay, sell them. I don't care. The boards come down $4. What's the price? He said 118, 3 weeks time. Same bid it was 3 weeks ago with the same amount of time. Well, now I had to feed the cattle 6 weeks too long, and the board never converged. So I lost $14. I had plus 5 basis penciled in and lost $14, 100 in basis. Well, that's about $200 on an animal on top of the feed, on top of I sold the cattle for less than I bought them for. And we fed them 700 pounds. So the reason I share that story is I got the closeout back, and he said, hey, and I had a bunch of closeouts. So I knew what I was looking at. He's like, I just want to walk you through it. This is what you paid. This is what you put down. That's the negative number there. This is what we sold them for. That's the bigger negative. And this number down here at the bottom is your feed bill. And then that number down there at the bottom is what you owe. I said, well, that's a pretty big number. How much time do I have? And I already knew the answer. He's like, about a week. And so I vaporized my entire net worth, almost 7 figures, feeding cattle and getting emotional about it. Now, had I sold them before, I'd still have plenty of that money. It still would have been a big, big loser, but something I could have dug out from. And that helped me, that education and having to start all over. Right? I came from nothing. My dad was U.S. military 26 years. My great-grandparents were coal miners in Western Kentucky. And it's one of these things where it's like, I worked so hard to get to where I was. And I'm, 37 years old, and I have my future secured. And that pill was really hard to swallow. I had to start all over. But I came back because I know I can. And I started doing things the right way again. I learned from my mistakes. I learned from my emotions. And I try to not let those drive my decision making. That's what's so challenging in your environment. There are so many things to stress out about on as a farm. As a farmer, you're a business owner, just like me. I have IT people to worry about, bills to pay, taxes to file, vendors to get feeds and this and that. And I'm on the phone all the time trying to figure out if this person's trying to sell me something or they actually can do their job. And I have those same struggles. And your job is to filter through all those and then figure out which ones can actually add value on your farm. And so the whole business is like that. Well, if you grow this genetic seed trait, you'll get 5 bushel more an acre. Or if you put this snake oil on, you'll get 3.7 more bushels per acre. Look at this one test plot we did. And sometimes those things are really good decisions, because that's a new farming technique that not a lot of people have heard of, and that propels you to new growth. But sometimes it doesn't work out. And so what you don't do, and I know you don't do this as a grower, you don't quit. You keep trying new things because you like to grow things. And sometimes you buy new equipment that does different things, or you change your farming techniques. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, depending on your soil types and all these other variables. But it's the same thing with marketing. It's actually the same thing. It's just more, for whatever reason, it appears more stressful. I'll tell you another story of working with a producer. He was short the cattle board, and he had all these animals out there, and the market tanked 20%, and he made all this money in his hedge account. And he said, "I've never made so much money. I've got, I'm working with you and this is so great and all this stuff." And I said, well, yeah, you made all this money in your hedge account, but those cattle, if you look out your window, That 1,000 head out there just lost about the same amount of money. You didn't make 200 grand like you thought you did. And he said this to me, which I thought was really interesting. And it helped me learn something. He said, I haven't sold those cattle yet. And I said, that's true. But if you lift the hedge, meaning take the money and send it back home, and the market keeps going down, you're going to lose even more money on those cattle that you have out there. So that's where it's important to remember hedging and speculating are different things. And we used to have this joke in Chicago where it's like, oh, you're speculating. Like it's a cross between speculating and hedge. Sure, you have to take some risk if you sell out of the field, right? Maybe you don't grow a crop. And some of you might be listening to this and be in a sandy soil area or tougher soil where it doesn't hold moisture. And you can go from what you think is a bumper crop to zero. That is a different scenario than what most people are dealing with. I understand there's other challenges. But what are the challenges that are holding you back? Is it personal accountability? Is it willing to accept the brain damage of trying to learn this stuff? That it's not easy. I'm not sitting here saying you're going to learn this in a week or two. This might take a year or 2-year process. But it's having that gazelle-like intensity. I'll tell you a story. It's a great one of my good friends told me this. He said, you ever heard the story of the lion and the gazelle? I said, no. He said, I have a picture of it on my wall in my office. He said, every day in Africa, the gazelle gets up at sunrise and says, I got to run faster than the fastest lion or I'm going to die. And every day the lion gets up and goes, I got to run faster than the slowest gazelle or I'm going to die. Moral of the story, when the sun comes up, you better be running. And so that's the thing to remember, right? We celebrate the good times and we've had some great times. But when I look at 24 and I see, the potential planting intentions, I think you're going to increase bean acres. I think you'll take corn down some. That might go to other crops, but everything is lower. And we're not talking about this commodity super cycle anymore. That was the exciting thing about crude oil going to 200 again. I've done this for so long. I've seen all these moves before. 2007, we said the same thing. $300 crude. Soybeans are going to $30. I even heard somebody say that, commentator, in 23. And this time last year, he said, what are you going to do when corn goes to $20 and beans go to 30 and wheat goes to 40? And I heard that. I just thought, what are you going to do if it goes back to $4 or $3? If it goes to $20, then you got a tax problem. That's for a different day. But I'm not here to sell hope. What you will always get from me, Rupert Williams, and Go Farm Yourself is the truth. We'll just tell you what we think it is. That doesn't mean we're necessarily right. But the reality of the situation is I've been very close to markets for a very long time. Now, I hope I'm wrong on this. I hope you're watching this and you laugh at me and you respond in the comments and you tell me how stupid I am, and we'll find out. But this is the narrative in the market. It's doom and gloom. And I know everybody's tired of hearing about it, but we're still sitting at $4.50 corn. What happens if July goes down to $4.50 and you've carried it at 8% sitting in your bin, paying your operating note? That money's working against you. If you have, let's do a simple example. If you had 100,000 bushels of corn, right? And that's worth $5, right? That's 500 grand. And that's 500 grand of grain that you haven't sold to pay down your operating note, right? So that $500, that 500 grand times 8% times 6 months is 4%. That's costing you 20 grand for that grain to sit in the bin. And if that price keeps going lower, it's costing you even more money. So that's something I want you to think about. Thanks for joining us. If you'd like to learn more, I plan on doing more of these. This is a journey. Hit like, subscribe, respond in the comments. Tell me how stupid I am. If you want to check out our website, gfy.ag, and what we're doing over there, that's our website. That's where you can find us. Or come back here to our YouTube channel when we post more videos like this.